Ladies and gentlemen, something unstoppable is rising from the east, and the world can no longer look away. India has done what many said was impossible. And now, the silence from the so-called global experts. This isn't just about rockets and satellites. This is a story of grit, of dreams built in the shadows of doubt. While Western media ran headlines soaked in skepticism, India aimed higher, pushed harder, and believed deeper. And today, India isn't asking for a seat at the table, it's building its own launchpad to the stars. For decades, India was the world's underdog in the space race, a nation underestimated and often dismissed as a place of struggle and scarcity, rather than innovation and ambition. The Western world, with all its loud voices and powerful platforms, rarely gave India the respect it deserved. Instead, the headlines were filled with skepticism, doubt, and even outright ridicule. Can a country still battling poverty really reach the stars, they asked. The answer, they believed, was a clear no. But what they failed to understand, what so many failed to see, is that India's story is not just about economics or resources. It's about a deep, unbreakable spirit forged through centuries of resilience and determination. India has never been a nation content to accept the labels imposed on it by others. The history of this land is one of survival against overwhelming odds, a civilization that thrived despite invasions, colonization, and countless hardships. This spirit lives on today, embedded in the very fabric of its society. When others see limitations, India sees potential. When others see obstacles, India sees opportunity. The rise of India's space program is not some overnight miracle. It is the culmination of decades of silent work, sweat, and sacrifice by thousands of unsung heroes. Behind every rocket launched, there is a story of relentless perseverance. The scientists and engineers who built these missions worked in conditions far less glamorous and far more challenging than their Western counterparts. Budgets were tight, technology was often second-hand or locally developed from scratch, and infrastructure was limited. Yet, none of these barriers stopped them. If anything, it fueled their fire. India's space program became a symbol of what sheer will and intelligence can accomplish when given the chance, even in the absence of enormous resources. This is what makes India's triumph so much more powerful than just a technical achievement. It is a statement to the world that intelligence and dedication can break through the ceiling set by status and wealth. India's success sends a message to every nation, every community, and every individual who has ever been told they don't belong on the global stage. You do belong. You belong not because of where you start, but because of how fiercely you refuse to give up. Consider this: the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, has achieved feats that many richer, more advanced nations have not. From sending missions to Mars at a fraction of the cost, to landing spacecraft on the moon, to developing its own navigation systems and satellite networks, India has been rewriting the playbook on space exploration. This is a country that took decades to gain independence, yet in less than a lifetime, it has become a spacefaring nation that rivals powers with centuries-old space programs. This is not luck. This is the product of visionary leadership, collective sacrifice, and a refusal to be boxed in by the narratives crafted by outsiders. What is truly remarkable is how India's rise in space isn't just about technology, it's about changing perceptions. The world was conditioned to see India through a narrow lens, a place of poverty, overpopulation, and underdevelopment. But India has shown that growth is not linear, and progress is not confined to certain geographies. The country's space triumphs are a powerful testament to the idea that greatness can emerge from the most unexpected places, challenging the old assumptions and shaking the global order. There is also a deeply emotional aspect to this journey. For millions of Indians, these space missions represent a shared pride and a reclaiming of dignity on the world stage. It's about honoring the dreams of those who came before, the generations who fought for freedom, the teachers who inspired curiosity, the parents who encouraged education, and the young minds who dared to dream of the stars despite everything telling them to stay grounded. Each launch isn't just a scientific achievement, it's a collective victory for a people who have endured, persisted, and ultimately soared. This story of the underdog is what makes India's space journey resonate far beyond its borders. It inspires countless others who have felt sidelined or underestimated by global powers. It's a reminder that history is full of those who were written off too soon, those who faced the harshest doubts and came back stronger. India's triumph is a beacon for anyone who has been told, "You can't." Because here is proof that you can. You can rise from the shadows of skepticism and light up the skies. In the end, India's arrival on the space stage is not just a national victory, it's a challenge to the world to rethink what is possible. It forces us all to question the narratives we've been fed and the biases we hold. The story of India's ascent from an underdog to a global space power is a lesson in humility and hope. It shows us that when determination meets opportunity, no dream is too big, no star too far. So yes, India was the underdog, but that underdog just turned the world upside down. And this is only the beginning. The silence from the Western media in the wake of India's monumental space achievements speaks volumes, louder than any headline or breaking news segment ever could. When India first began its ambitious space missions, the world's major media outlets were quick to doubt, quick to dismiss, and quick to mock. They questioned the country's ability to succeed, casting shadows of skepticism on the groundbreaking work being done by Indian scientists and engineers. But now, after countless successes that have pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible, those very voices have fallen eerily quiet. The same media that once shouted warnings and doubts now offers only silence, as if trying to erase India's remarkable journey from their narrative. This silence isn't accidental. It's a deliberate act that reveals deep-rooted biases and an unwillingness to acknowledge the shifting global landscape. For years, the Western media controlled the storylines about progress and innovation, deciding who deserved attention and who did not. India's rapid rise in space technology challenges that control. It disrupts the comfortable narratives that have long centered Western countries as the sole pioneers of scientific achievement. This silence is not just about withholding praise, it is an attempt to maintain old hierarchies of power and prestige, in a world that is fast changing. Yet silence cannot erase truth. The truth is that India has not only caught up but in many ways has leapfrogged conventional benchmarks set by established spacefaring nations. From sending a probe to Mars on a shoestring budget to the recent lunar missions that captured the world's imagination, India's space program represents a triumph of ingenuity, persistence, and resourcefulness. The absence of loud praise from Western media doesn't diminish the magnitude of these accomplishments. If anything, it underscores how threatened the old powers feel when their monopoly on success is challenged. The reluctance of Western media to celebrate India's victories is a reflection of a deeper discomfort with a world that no longer fits their narratives of dominance. It exposes an unspoken truth: progress is no longer confined to the traditional centers of power. New players are emerging, countries and people who refuse to accept the limits imposed on them by history or circumstance. India's rise in space exploration is one such story, a beacon signaling that the future belongs to those who dare to dream beyond their borders and rewrite the rules of possibility. This silence also reveals a broader issue with media itself, a tendency to uphold established power structures rather than celebrate genuine breakthroughs, especially when those breakthroughs come from unexpected places. For too long, the Western media has framed success through a narrow lens, often equating innovation with wealth, privilege, or Western heritage. India's space achievements challenge this bias, showing that brilliance is not the monopoly of a few select nations. When a country like India quietly sends a spacecraft to Mars or lands on the moon, it demands a re-examination of how we define leadership and excellence on the global stage. The quietness from the Western media isn't just about coverage, it's about the narratives that get told, and those that get silenced. It's about whose stories are deemed worthy and whose accomplishments are sidelined. And when India's incredible feats go underreported or ignored, it perpetuates a cycle where millions of young minds across the globe are denied the role models they desperately need. Imagine the difference it would make if every child in India, the United States, or anywhere else could see their own country celebrated for reaching the stars, instead of hearing doubt and dismissal. Despite the silence, India's space triumphs have not gone unnoticed everywhere. Around the world, millions have watched in awe, feeling inspired by what India has accomplished. This isn't just about rockets or satellites, it's about reclaiming dignity and rewriting history. It's about a people who have endured centuries of challenges finally announcing their arrival on a global stage with undeniable power. The quiet from the Western media only amplifies this moment. It highlights the tension between old power and new realities, between narratives built on control and those built on truth. India's space success is a profound lesson in perseverance and pride. It teaches us that validation does not come from approval but from action. It reminds us that true success often comes when others refuse to believe in you, when they try to silence your voice or ignore your achievements. This silence from the West, while disappointing, becomes a catalyst for even greater motivation, a challenge to prove that no amount of ignoring or dismissing can stop a nation determined to rise. This moment in history belongs to India, but its message is universal. It's a call to every person who has ever been underestimated, to every nation told they are not ready, and to every dreamer told their goals are impossible. India's triumph says loud and clear, you don't need anyone else's permission to be great. You don't need the media's applause to write your own story. You just need to believe, to work relentlessly, and to never back down. So while the Western media stays silent, the world is watching. The silence only proves one thing. India's space triumph is too powerful, too real, and too transformative to be ignored, and that truth will continue to echo, louder and louder, until the world can no longer deny it. This isn't just about technology or scientific milestones, it's about a generation of Indians who refuse to bow, refuse to accept the limits set by others, and refuse to let their dreams be crushed under the weight of doubt. When you look at the story of India's rise in space exploration, you're really looking at the story of millions of ordinary people who did extraordinary things, simply because they believed it was possible. This generation didn't wait for permission or for conditions to be perfect. They created their own path, often in the face of adversity that would have broken lesser spirits. From the beginning, Indian scientists and engineers worked under immense pressure and limited resources. They were often overlooked by the global scientific community, not because of lack of talent, but because of where they came from. Yet they persisted. They worked day and night, fueled by a vision that went beyond their immediate circumstances. These were people who had grown up in a country with a complex history of colonialism, poverty, and struggle, but who refused to let those realities define their future. Instead, they harnessed those very challenges as motivation, as fuel for an unyielding desire to prove the world wrong. This generation of Indians didn't just want to catch up with the world, they wanted to surpass expectations and set new standards. They dreamed not only of launching satellites and probes, but of carving out a place for India among the great spacefaring nations. They understood that this was more than just science, it was about national pride, about reclaiming a narrative that had long been written for them by others. Every launch, every mission, every success was a statement. India will not be underestimated. India will not be pushed aside. The emotional weight carried by this generation is immense. These are individuals who sacrificed personal comfort and security for a larger cause. They stayed awake through countless nights debugging codes, fixing engineering flaws, and running simulations. They faced failures with resilience and setbacks with determination. Behind the headlines and technical jargon, there were real people pouring their hearts into missions that represented not just their careers, but the hopes of an entire nation. They were driven by a fierce love for their country and a burning desire to see India shine on the global stage. What makes this story so powerful is that it's not about one hero or one leader, it's about a collective movement, a generation united by a shared dream and a relentless work ethic. This is a generation that dared to believe in the impossible, even when the world scoffed. They refused to let the past dictate their future, and refused to accept that their contributions would be overshadowed by others. They were unapologetically ambitious, knowing full well that ambition in India's context was often met with skepticism or resistance. This generation's refusal to bow is also a powerful message to the world. It challenges the traditional narratives that have long dominated global discourse, narratives that place Western countries at the pinnacle of innovation and progress. India's success in space exploration proves that brilliance knows no borders, that talent and determination are universal. It reminds the world that innovation often springs from adversity, from those who have something to prove and everything to gain. This generation's triumph is a loud and clear rebuttal to anyone who believes that only a few select countries have the right to lead the future. It's also a deeply emotional victory for the Indian people themselves. For centuries, India has endured colonization, partition, poverty, and social upheaval. Yet, through it all, this generation stood tall. They took the lessons of the past and transformed them into the engines of progress. Their work in space exploration is a symbol of national pride and unity, a reminder that when a nation comes together with a shared vision, nothing is impossible. This generation's journey from humble beginnings to launching rockets into space resonates deeply because it is a testament to the power of belief, resilience, and collective effort. The significance of this generation's achievement extends far beyond the technical realm. It inspires millions of young Indians and people around the world to dream bigger, work harder, and never accept limits imposed by society, geography, or history. It shows that true power lies not in wealth or privilege, but in courage, persistence, and an unshakable belief in one's potential. Their story encourages others to stand up, speak out, and chase their dreams relentlessly, no matter the obstacles. Ultimately, this generation's refusal to bow is not just about space exploration, it's a metaphor for life itself. It's about standing tall in the face of adversity, about owning your identity and your ambitions unapologetically. It's about breaking free from the chains of doubt and low expectations and soaring higher than anyone thought possible. This generation has proven that success is not about where you come from, but about how fiercely you fight for your place in the world. In every rocket launched and every mission accomplished, the spirit of this generation echoes loud and clear. They are the architects of a new India, bold, confident, and unafraid to claim its rightful place among the stars. Their journey reminds us all that no matter what challenges we face, no matter how many times the world tells us no, the power to rise, to shine, and to triumph lies within us all. India's space triumph is far more than just a national achievement. It is a global revolution, a powerful source of inspiration that transcends borders and breaks down old barriers. This victory is a signal to the entire world, a message that no longer can innovation, brilliance, and determination be confined to a few select nations or regions. It is a call to every child, every young adult, and every dreamer, from the bustling streets of Delhi to the neighborhoods of Detroit, that their potential is limitless, and their dreams are valid, no matter where they come from. For too long, the global narrative around success and leadership has been narrowly defined, often dominated by a handful of Western countries. These narratives have shaped how people view what is possible, who deserves recognition, and where true innovation resides. But India's recent space missions disrupt these outdated ideas and demand a new way of thinking. They show the world that greatness does not come from privilege alone, but from vision, resilience, and relentless effort. India's story challenges the world to rethink its assumptions and to recognize that the future belongs to those who dare to defy expectations. This triumph resonates on a deeply emotional level for millions of people. It represents hope, the hope that no matter the circumstances of your birth, no matter the limitations placed on your opportunities, you can rise above. The success of India's space program sends a powerful message to those who have been told you can't, you're not ready, or you don't belong. It tells them that those words do not define reality. What defines reality is your courage to dream bigger, your commitment to work harder, and your refusal to accept defeat. Imagine a young boy in a small town in India, watching news of a rocket launch that India has accomplished against all odds. Or picture a young girl in America, inspired by India's bold strides into space, realizing that excellence knows no borders, and that she too can reach for the stars. This isn't just about pride, it's about the power of representation and the fuel of inspiration. Seeing India succeed on such a monumental scale makes the impossible seem possible for millions around the world. It ignites ambition and empowers people to break free from the limitations that society or circumstance might have placed on them. India's space success also represents a broader shift in the global balance of innovation and power. It is proof that the centers of influence are expanding, no
longer held captive by tradition or legacy. The world is moving toward a more multipolar future, one where many voices contribute to the story of progress, where the margins become the center, and where new ideas and breakthroughs come from everywhere, not just a select few. This shift holds the promise of a richer, more diverse, and more dynamic world, where collaboration and competition push humanity forward in unprecedented ways. The emotional charge behind India's triumph also lies in the reclamation of dignity and identity. For centuries, India has grappled with the scars of colonization and the stereotypes imposed by outsiders. The country's incredible achievements in space exploration are a way of rewriting those narratives on its own terms. It is a bold declaration that India is no longer willing to be defined by its past or by the doubts of others. Instead, it is defining itself through innovation, courage, and vision. This transformation is not just symbolic, it is a tangible shift in how India views itself and how it demands to be seen by the world. This revolution fueled by India's success in space is not limited to science and technology. It extends into culture, education, and global perception. It challenges educators to inspire the next generation to pursue STEM fields. It encourages policymakers to invest in innovation and infrastructure, and it invites every individual to believe in their capacity to contribute meaningfully to the world. The momentum created by these achievements creates ripple effects across society, building a foundation for even greater accomplishments in the future. At its core, this is a story about breaking boundaries, geographical, social, and mental. India's space program embodies the refusal to be confined by expectations or stereotypes. It represents the courage to dream on a scale that was once thought impossible, and it serves as a reminder to all of us that the limits we face are often self-imposed or imposed by others, but they are not permanent. India's space triumph shows us that inspiration is contagious and revolutionary. It proves that when one nation rises with confidence and conviction, it lights a fire under the rest of the world. This moment will be remembered as a turning point, a time when the definition of greatness expanded, when hope soared higher than ever before, and when the stars themselves seemed a little closer for all of us. The revolution India ignited with its space success is ongoing. It is a movement that calls on every individual to believe in their power, to push past the barriers of doubt, and to pursue their dreams with relentless passion. This is not just a victory for India, it is a beacon for the entire world, illuminating the path toward a future where everyone has a chance to shine. In every sense, India's space triumph is a revolution, not only in science, but in spirit. It's a revolution that challenges the old guard, inspires the next generation, and reminds us all that greatness belongs to those bold enough to claim it. ChatGPT said, "This is more than a moment to celebrate. It is a turning point, a declaration that the future belongs to those who refuse to be limited by history, geography, or the narrow expectations of others." India's journey into space is a story of relentless courage and unyielding belief. It is proof that when passion meets perseverance, the impossible becomes inevitable. The silence from Western media, the skepticism, the doubt, it all fades in the face of undeniable success. At its core, this triumph is a testament to the human spirit, the spirit that refuses to bow, that challenges the status quo, that dares to dream beyond the horizons imposed by circumstance. India's achievements show us that greatness is not the exclusive property of a privileged few. It belongs to every person, every nation, every community, willing to put in the work, to believe in themselves, and to rise no matter the obstacles. This moment is a beacon for anyone who has ever been underestimated or overlooked. It tells the story of a people who transformed skepticism into fuel, poverty into possibility, and silence into a resounding roar that echoes across the globe. India's space triumph is a loud, unapologetic statement. The future is not dictated by those who shout the loudest, but by those who work the hardest and dream the biggest. It's also a call to action for every young mind watching, every dreamer feeling the weight of doubt, and every soul hungry for change. Let this achievement remind you that your background does not define your destiny. Your potential is boundless, your ambitions valid, and your impact real. No matter where you come from, you have the power to reach for the stars. The road ahead will not be easy, and challenges will continue to arise, but the foundation has been laid, and the momentum is unstoppable. India's space program stands as a symbol of what can be achieved when a nation unites behind behind a vision larger than itself. It inspires a future where innovation is democratized, where opportunities are expanded, and where dreams are no longer limited by geography or circumstance. As the world watches, India's triumph shines a light on the true meaning of progress, not just technological advancement, but the triumph of hope, resilience, and unwavering determination. It reminds us that history is written not by those who play it safe, but by those bold enough to break the mold and redefine what's possible. So let this victory be a rallying cry, to break free from doubt, to reject limitations, and to pursue greatness without apology. Let it inspire us all to stand taller, dream bigger, and push harder, because when one nation rises, it lifts the entire world with it, and when the stars are within reach for some, they become reachable for all. India's space triumph is not just a chapter in history, it is the beginning of a new era, an era defined by courage, by innovation, and by the relentless pursuit of excellence. It is proof that the future belongs to the fearless, to the visionaries, and to the warriors of dreams. This is your moment, the moment to believe that you can, to know that you will, and to rise with unstoppable force. The stars are waiting, and now so is the world.